Welcome back. This is The Firm. Who is an insider? Can a person connected to the acquirer or the events surrounding the acquisition be considered a connected person and hence insider? Or must he be connected to the target, the company whose shares have been traded in the alleged insider trading? Well, that's one of the key questions answered by SEBI in its insider trading order in the matter of KLG Capital. Do these answers stand up to scrutiny? Payaswini Upadhyay is at work again.
In 2008, Aweta Properties made an open offer for a 20% stake in KLG Capital. A week before the open offer, 3 people traded in the shares of KLG Capital. It turned out that these 3 were allegedly connected to SKIL, a group company of Aweta, the company that had made the open offer for KLG's shares. SEBI alleged that these 3 were connected persons to KLG and had access to unpublished price-sensitive information or UPSI, hence the trades amounted to insider trading. SEBI alleged that the UPSI of the open offer was known to SKIL President Hemant Patel, who traded in the shares of KLG and communicated the UPSI to the Executive Director Praveen Manoj. Manoj then passed this information to his daughter Priyanka Singhvi, who traded in the shares of KLG based on this UPSI. Similarly, Deputy Chairman N. Ravichandran communicated the UPSI to his wife Anita Ravichandran, who then traded in KLG Capital shares. The accused argued that they were not connected to KLG as they do not occupy any position nor have any business relationship with KLG Capital, and so they cannot be reasonably expected to have access to UPSI. The crux of their arguments is that UPSI has to emanate from the company in whose shares transactions have taken place. But SEBI did not buy that logic. It concluded that SKIL's president, Hemant Patel, was a connected person to KLG Capital as he played a key role in the acquisition by Aweta, was in touch with KLG's promoters and the lead manager to the open offer. This qualified as a temporary professional or business relationship with KLG, and since he had the UPSI of the impending open offer, he was an insider. SEBI found Hemant Patel guilty of trading in KLG's shares on the basis of the UPSI. It similarly alleged that Praveen Manoj and N. Ravichandran of SKIL were also involved in the open offer discussions and passed this information on to their relatives who went on to trade in the stock.
The case comes down to the definition of connected person and whether that person must be directly connected to the company whose shares have been traded in. Sandeep, your response to it?
So I think the question is simple, but the answer is beastly complex. And so I'll go to the kind of heart of this issue, which is with reference to the specific case which we're talking about. And that is that information has to be inside information. Now that sounds like a pretty innocuous and simple thing, but the fact is it's slightly more complicated, and it's made more complicated by 2 rulings. One is the current one which we're discussing, and one is a SAT ruling called VK Call, which have expanded the definition of insider trading to outsider information as well, which I think kind of not only defeats the purpose of the law, but also creates unintended consequences. I'll give an example in a short while, but essentially it broadens the prohibition so vastly that all kinds of innocent conduct also would get captured if you start taking outside information into consideration. And in the facts of this case, for example, the outside information is the information that the acquirer is going to buy the shares, and therefore the share price of a target company would go up. In which case, the information which is price sensitive is not inside information which comes from the target, but outside information which is the intention of an acquirer to purchase shares. And let me just give you one short example of the dangers of going beyond the classic case of inside information being misused by insiders. And let me take you back 30 years into the mind of US Supreme Court judges who decided a very famous case called Dirks, in which he unraveled a massive fraud, did some analysis, investigation, and exposed the fraud of a company whose shares tanked. And he was in fact prosecuted by the SEC, funnily enough, for insider trading because he had access to inside information. So I think the dangers of kind of going over expanding definitions are real, and there have been examples where such powers have been kind of used very randomly.
Karthik, would you agree that the information must emanate from the target company?
No, actually, I disagree with that. I think inside information is basically any unpublished price-sensitive information. So from the point of view of, who uses that information, the test of an insider is a person either who is deemed to be connected with the company or anybody who has access to unpublished price-sensitive information. I fully understand the concern with respect to making this broader than it should be. But under the principle of fairness, if there is a person who is deemed to be an insider who communicates that to someone who is not an insider, then that person using that information should not be allowed to profit from that information. So I'm going to suggest that, for example, the other example I can give you is you have two people sitting in a cab discussing a transaction of a company that doesn't involve the cab driver. The cab driver hears this and tips somebody off who goes and buys the stock. Now, theoretically, that is still trading on unpublished price-sensitive information because it is information that was confidential, that had a material impact on the price and should not have been used by someone. Now, clearly, the place that I stand in is if a person has access to information which is not in the public domain, which can be used by him to speculate in stock in a way that is not something a person in the public can do, then I would believe that that person should be prosecuted.
Let me give you an analogy why I disagree with Karthik in this. And the best analogy I can think of is imagine there's a prohibition on theft, which is there in almost all countries all over the world. Now, I pick somebody's pocket, of course, somebody catches me, I go to jail, I pay a penalty, etc., etc. Completely fair. In which, what is illegal is also unfair, and I go to jail for that. Compare that situation with me finding 100 rupees on the road, and I pick it up. Should I be treated like a thief? And I think nowhere in the world would the two situations be considered as equal. I probably would not go to jail for picking up a 100 rupee note. I mean, though there's a duty of fairness that I should look for the owner of that note. So to compare unfairness with illegality, all illegal stuff is of course unfair, no doubt, but it doesn't work the other way around. And in the insider trading cases, I think I'm pretty clear that what ought to be illegal should be specified very strictly within in black and white, saying that if there is breach of fiduciary duty, if there's kind of misuse of the powers of an insider who has access to special information or their TPs, by all means go and prosecute them. And funnily enough, in this case, that seems to be kind of the case, which was not at all developed by SEBI. One of the persons in this case, in fact, had access to insiders, and SEBI could have developed the case in that manner, and it could have been a reasonably strong case. But SEBI has chosen to rely on outside information.
I disagree with the analogy because of the part of theft, right? So in this case, you're talking about information that is available to people. Now, if this unpublished price-sensitive information was available to everybody, then everybody could have traded on it. The point that we're trying to make here is that the regulations themselves are fairly clear with respect to the fact that if you have inside information, you shouldn't use it. I agree with Sandeep. SAT didn't need to go, the whole time member didn't need to go into whether you were connected or not. It basically should have been as simple as, if you had unpublished price-sensitive information, you should not have used that to make a gain. They should have stopped there. But by convoluting it, by going in, trying to show a connection note of that, I think they sort of muddied the waters a bit.
Besides the three that traded in shares, SEBI has also found guilty of insider trading the officials of SKIL on grounds of communicating UPSI. SKIL's Executive Director Praveen Manot and Deputy Chairman N. Ravichandran are alleged to have communicated information on Aveta's offer for KLG's shares to their relatives, who in turn traded in the shares of KLG. Further, SEBI found proof that the two SKIL officials communicated with brokers to help their relatives make the trades.
Let me come to the second important and interesting issue that this case has thrown up. To your mind, does mere communication of unpublished price-sensitive information amount to an insider trading violation?
So let me take that first. I think communication as is defined, again, I'm ignoring the mother question which I answered previously. But communication in India does amount to insider, it does amount to a violation, even if there's no trade, at least technically or theoretically. However, I doubt if SEBI would in fact prosecute people. There have been examples where SEBI has gone after people for sharing of information unequally, and one of the cases was with regard to a person coming on CNBC, the famous Ispat case. So there have been examples which are kind of similar, but no, I'm not sure there are examples where people have tipped information and no trade has occurred and SEBI has gone after them.
Karthik?
Yeah, so I agree with Sandeep. The offense is really the fact that you've dealt in the securities. The offense is not really that you might have committed a breach of confidence, certainly. You might have, breached some obligations that you had with respect to, your fiduciary duties. But if you've just communicated that information and the consequence is not a dealing in securities, then it's very hard to say that anything wrong has been done, except perhaps breach of confidence or breach of your obligations. So I would say that the offense is really dealing in the securities pursuant to having that unpublished price-sensitive information. I do not think that if you were to just communicate that information and there was no consequence to it, like a deal or a trade or anything, that is an offense.
Okay, so let me put the last question to the both of you. What do you see as the grounds for appeal if this were to go to SAT? And considering that SAT has ruled in a particular previous case, famously known as the VK call case, in SEBI's favor?
So I think my guess would be SAT would likely uphold it, because they've kind of, in common law we have the system of precedent. So unless they kind of very violently disagree with the principle they've laid before for good reason, there's a good chance that this will be upheld in SAT.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at how the cases come out and the fact that SEBI has used information, including, sort of telephone calls, the contact between tipper and tippee, the fact that the insider actually was involved in the process. They've used information with respect to historical trades to show break from trading pattern and all of this. I believe that this will be upheld.
Manoj, Ravichandran and the three who traded the shares have been banned from the securities market for the next 2 to 5 years. Hemant Patel, Priyanka Singhvi and Anita Ravichandran have also been ordered to disgorge unlawful gains of 3 crore rupees in the next 45 days. This would probably amount to one of the largest disgorgement amounts in an insider trading case.
Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of The Firm. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next week. But before we go, a quick reminder that we are covering the Companies Act 2013 in a special series that also plays out on the weekend. This weekend, we'll be playing out episode 14, focused on corporate social responsibility. Make sure you tune in.